Hello, and welcome to this chapter of Based on a Book. This episode, we're going to cover fencing, fighting, torture, poison, true love, hate, revenge, giants, hunters, bad men, good men, beautifulest ladies, snakes, spiders, beasts of all natures and descriptions, pain, death, brave men, coward men, strongest men, chases, escapes, lies, truce, passion, miracles. I'm your host, Crystal, and I am not left-handed.
As you wish. Carrie's here, and I brought plenty of R.O.U.S. rants of unusual scenes.
Ho there, I'm Lindsey. Fezzik at heart, rhyming on cue. Anybody want a peanut? Cause I sure do.
Oh, that's right, folks. This week we are covering The Princess Bride, the book by William Goldman, and the movie adaptation screenplay also written by William Goldman and directed by Rob Reiner. This is one of my all-time favorite books ever. Go ahead, Keri, Lindsey, let it out. That was freaking hilarious.
I'm laughing at Cary.
I'm so glad you worked peanut into that. That was my favorite probably line. And that's just it. How many lines from this movie are just lines you've heard 1,000 times in your life, right?
Like most of the movie.
Yeah.
Because this is just a classic movie, and I am so excited to cover this. Most people my age, because that's when it came out, was in the mid 80s. Like we all have grown up with this movie, but as I talked to my friends to tell them like, hey, we're doing The Princess Bride, no one had read the book. So, in fact, even though it says very clearly in the very beginning of the movie, based on the book written by William Goldman, nobody even seemed to, like a handful of people were like, I didn't know there was a book, so I'm really excited to do this one. And I can't wait to talk about it with you guys. I want to know what you think and how you rated it. I want us to talk about how we rated the book first. I think we can all agree that with or without any ratings on anything, the movie's worth watching. So we're just everybody knows that already. We're just gonna let that be what it is. Shut up, Lindsey. I see that face. You didn't like the movie?
What? No, I love the movie.
Oh, okay, just making sure. Oh. I was like, what is she making that face? Like,
That's just my face.
No, that's fair. All three of us kind of have that face going on now and then. Okay. Anyways, so while we're talking about your face, Lindsey, let's hear what you have to say about the book.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's kind of hard. When I did my rating, I really had both in mind because while the writing style is very different from anything that I've read before, I have to say my rating pretty much matches the movie. So Domingo Montoya crafted the perfect blade, the six-fingered sword. So with my rating, I'm going to give it the one and only six-fingered sword, which is the equivalent of 5 stars.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, that's so neat. Okay. Cary, what did you think?
Okay. So I have to say that I really try to think back. I probably saw the movie, I want to say maybe like once or twice. And whenever I was reading the book, I was really trying to remember the movie. So
Mhm.
reading the book was an interesting experience because I couldn't remember anything. So this was like a genuine reaction to the story and kind of not knowing what was going to happen next a little bit.
That's cool.
Except like some scenes I was like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that. But the book, the format, writing style and stuff, and I'm keeping it very separate from the movie. Like it's different than Lindsey. I'm keeping it very separate from the movie. This is not how I feel about the movie, but the book itself, because of the writing style, I'm giving it 3 quotable kidnappers.
Oh, all right. I really struggled to separate the book from the movie. And when I tell you I know this movie by heart,
Mm-hmm.
I know this movie by heart. I've seen it every day when I was sick as a kid. It was always showing on cable or satellite television forever, even when I was a teenager. Like, it, I don't want to say it came to me in bad parts of my life, but there were definitely some sad, lonely parts of my life that it would pop up, and it would just be like, okay, I'm home again. It would bring me back to that comforting, soup and on the couch and pillows and grandma's telling me to get, there's so much nostalgia with it that it was really hard for me to separate the movie from this book. And then there are so many parts in the book that are word for word in the movie. So
Mhm.
every time I would kind of find myself falling out of the book, just being like, it would snatch me back in again. So I will say all of my favorite parts from the movie are straight out of the book, and I love that. But
Yeah, that was really
also,
cool.
it was really cool. And obviously, William Goldman having written the book and the screenplay kind of helped. He got to keep his favorite parts,
Yeah.
But also, there were so many parts in it that I just found kind of boring. And I don't know, like, I don't want to say they were unnecessary, but I feel like they didn't add much to the story. So I'm going to say overall, I give the book 3.75 Andre the Giant hugs. Yeah, and that's how I feel about that.
Yeah. I totally get why. That's why I think with my rating, it was easy to separate the two because it
Right.
was really hard for me to remember what happened in the movie.
Mhm.
But I imagine it's really hard to separate it when you've seen the movie so many times.
1,000 times.
Yeah.
And honestly, even recently, I think I probably watched it like 30 days ago just because I saw it and I was like, ooh, that's a good one. And just go.
Yeah. I watched it with my sister, and I will say my sister watched it for the very first time.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
it.
And she loved it.
So what did she think? Oh, good. Oh, good.
Yeah, she loved it.
I
She
don't
better.
I was gonna say, I don't know if I could, like, she's no longer in the fan club if she didn't like you out. Um, so I kind of want to talk about the book for a minute and the style of the book before we jump into going through the plot. The book is satire, and like all good satire, sometimes it's hard to believe that it's fiction because it's so the way it's written kind of takes you back to like, well, that sounds like it really could be real. That sounds like a place that could exist. Like, when he talks about his grandfather being from Florin, he talks about like, oh, the bakery down the street and the authors from there and the college that's there. And, so it kind of like really sets the scene. And there were definitely times within the book that I had to ask myself, wait, is this part real? And then the other part's fake? Or is it all? It's all fake. It's all fake. When he talks about, his kid and his wife, like none of that is real. But it's still like, it was a little trippy for the first couple of chapters trying to remind myself. So I just want to put that out there for anybody who decides to read the book.
Mhm.
There's not a single part of this book that is true. It is all
Yeah.
fiction.
It's
Like,
like it's like a book within a book,
about a
but
book.
it's yeah, about a book, but it's like a fictional book within a book.
Right, but then we're supposed to believe that the fictional book within the fictional book is a history.
Yeah,
So a history
a
of an
fictional
event
history.
of a true story. Like, so
Yeah.
it's
It made
very
me wanna throw it.
Inception. Yeah, it really, there were a few times that I was like, that sounds like it could be real. That sounds like it could be true. Like, no, none of it's true. Not a single bit. Even the parts that you're going, oh, well, this part is him telling the truth before he sets up this. No,
Yeah. I
no,
will say that there were times where I was like, "Oh my gosh, I literally love this book." And then there
absolutely.
were times that I was like,
This is boring. 3 pages,
"Screw this book.
yeah.
Screw it. I hate it, you pretentious little book. I hate this book." And I wanted to throw it, and then I was like, "Oh my god, come back. I love this book."
I will say, basically, the list at the beginning of the story that, or the beginning of our episode, is the trigger warning list. There's a bit of gore, a little bit, and there's some fat shaming that will happen. So if that's so, we'll be talking about that. But other than that, I don't have a crap ton of trigger warnings. I already mentioned them. Unless you guys can think of any.
No,
I think that list was
yeah.
pretty exhaustive.
Yeah.
Well, without further ado, we're going to move ahead with the full spoiler plot and our thoughts moving through the book and the movie. And we have so much to talk about this movie because there's a lot of material, so much material. But let's start with the book. The opening chapter of the book is the author William Goldman talking about how he came to know the story of The Princess Bride through his father, who is from Florin. Again, none of this is true, folks. There's no real place called Florin. But anyways, in the story, he talks about the narrator. We're just going to call him the narrator. Let's not call him the author. The narrator. The narrator is telling us the story of his father, who is from Florin and doesn't speak very good English, and how he read him this story when he was homesick with pneumonia, and then moves in how much he loved the story. We move through a section of him then fat shaming his son, bitching about his wife, but somehow wants a connection with his son. So he goes to buy a copy of this book for his son's 10th birthday, thinking this can be the way I can connect to my son. Lo and behold, he gets the book. And the son says, I read the first chapter, but then I stopped at the second. And he's all upset because he's like, why didn't you keep reading? It's such a great story. I don't understand you. We're never going to get around. But then he picks it up and he realizes the story that his dad told him is grossly different. His dad had cut out all the boring parts and only read him the exciting stuff. So then the narrator decides he is going to write the abridged version, the actual exciting, fun part, because there was a whole bunch of stuff in there originally that was like begets and begots and the stuff that nobody really wants to read and always skips over anyways. So he decided he's going to write this story, the abridged version. And he's already an established author. He already has a publishing house. So he reaches out to them. They say, okay, go ahead, do it. The movie opens with Fred Savage in bed playing video games, homesick. And his mom comes in and says, your grandfather's here. His grandfather comes in and says, I'm going to read you this story that my father read to me and his father read to him. And Fred Savage is all like, no, like a book? I don't think so. And he's all like, no, it's a great book. It's got fencing. It's got, giants. It's, so they kind of start a little differently. You guys are both really quiet. I'm waiting for you to jump in and be like, I hated that part, or that was really confusing or something. But
I feel like you're telling me the story and I enjoy it. I'm
Wait.
Fred Savage.
Wait a minute. Like, we cannot add another layer to this inception. It's too much. Like,
Yeah. Well, I was trying to explain it to the people I was watching it with, and I was like, this is actually how it is in the book, and explaining the layers of it.
And
And I
there's
was like,
layers.
yeah, there's a bunch of layers to it. And I'm like, yeah, they can't be putting this in the movie because
No.
honestly, your attention would be gone.
So gone.
Attention's gone. I'm not watching this movie anymore because I don't understand what's going on.
So then in the movie and in the book, we jump to Buttercup. Buttercup is basically a farm girl. She's like the daughter of farmers. She's a peasant, but she is one of the most beautiful women in the world at the time, right? She doesn't really realize it. She's kind of like whatever. She doesn't like to bathe. She doesn't want to brush her hair. She's just living on this farm. And Wesley is the I don't know if he's like a hired hand, but he's just a farm boy. In fact, that's all she calls him is farm boy. She hardly speaks to him. She doesn't want to deal with him. She delights in just making him do more work. Like, that's her favorite thing in the world, is to just give him something to do. And because she is like the daughter of the landowner or whatever, she gets to boss him around. And she just loves that. Big difference between the movie and the book right off the bat is we are in the movie, it never really comes up that Buttercup might be kind of stupid, but in the book, it's pretty well spelled out that she's dumb. That she doesn't understand, like, she can't read very well. She doesn't understand directions that are given to her. She doesn't pronounce words correctly. Like, she's just kind of dumb. Um, but one day she kind of realizes that, well, the her beauty has kind of gotten around, right? People are started talking about how pretty she is. And so this guy, this count, who we find out later is Count Rugen, but this count and his wife come to the farm to see her, and the countess notices Wesley and is
Mhm.
all like, "Hey, farm boy, show
I
me how
love
you
this
feed
part.
like show me how you feed those cows to get such good milk." Like, and she just like traipses through the mud and the muck following after farm boy, and the count doesn't even, he's just like, whatever.
And Buttercup is so mad.
And
So
Buttercup is
mad.
like, "Excuse me, what? That's my farm boy." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so she goes to bed and she has this like whole night of can't sleep because she's finally realizing, I love Wesley.
Yeah. Because she saw him with another woman, basically, like, walking around with another woman, and she
Right.
immediately someone else is giving him attention.
Mm-hmm.
So then that's when your feelings start. I like,
She was
classic.
like, "Oh no." And the line where she wakes up the next day and she runs to his little like hut, because he like stays in the barn or whatever, and she runs out there and she is telling him how much she loves him, and she's like, "It's immeasurable, because every moment I feel like I couldn't possibly love you anymore, and then 2 minutes later I don't understand that I knew that 2 minutes ago that wasn't even love. What I'm feeling now is love, and it keeps growing." And it is written so beautifully for such a dumb girl. I like, and
It's the
I
most romantic, like, declaration of
it
love.
is so beautiful. And then he slams the door in her face. And I closed the book and cackled at this part. In the movie, that is not how this goes.
No.
In the movie, she's like, every time she tells him to do something, he's like, "As you wish."
Mhm.
And then one day she realizes that what he's really saying is, "I love you."
Mhm.
In fact, I'm pretty sure that I just quoted the movie and I didn't mean to.
You did.
Like, I just like this. I know this movie. Everyone knows this movie at this point.
Mhm.
Like, everyone my age was raised on it. But even more beautiful was the day that she realized that she loved him too. And that was kind of it. Like, there was no scene of a declaration. There was no whatever.
And there was
And
no count, like, coming in to
yeah,
see
there was
her
no
either.
count or countess or anything like that. So in the book, she runs off to her bedroom and is just beside herself and is sobbing. But then she's like, "No, get it together. You can't be like this. Get over it." And she even realizes inside that there is really no getting over it, but she's going to have to fake it. And then he like shows up that night and is all like, "I want to talk to you." And she opens the door. She's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. You must have taken my joke wrong." And I was kidding. And
Yeah.
he's like, "I'm leaving." And she was like, "What? No, like, I wasn't kidding. I do love you. You can't leave," or whatever. And he's like, "I'm gonna go to the Americas. I'm gonna sail away and make my fortune and create a life for us so that you can come to me and we'll have a life together, a good life." In the movie, he like straight up is like, "I'm gonna go seek my fortune on the high seas." Like, and
Mhm.
then in the book and in the movie, we kind of just instantly, like, she finds out that his ship was intercepted by the dread pirate Roberts and he takes no prisoners. In the book, like, she just crumbles. "I will never love again."
Mhm.
In the movie, that's in the book, she like mourns.
Pulls a
She
Bella from Twilight.
pretty much like, I'm
It's
gonna
a possibility.
she's
You know,
she's
you know. She's just sitting there and the months
yup.
going by. It's a
Yup, and that's
possibility.
exactly what's happening. She has, like, locked herself in her room, she's just going through the motions, she is dead inside, and one day she just comes down, like, she's in her room for, like, a week or so, and then one day she comes downstairs, and everybody, like, goes to help her, and she's like, "Nope, I will just go about my life. And then the prince shows up because the count was like, I know a girl who's pretty hot. So the prince shows up and he's like, oh damn. And he says, I'm gonna marry you. And she
Mhm.
says, I can't love anybody. And he's like, I never said anything about love.
Can we
And
talk
she was
about
like,
something
okay,
real quick?
yes, please.
Can we talk about how okay, so whenever I was reading the book, like I said, I honestly was really struggling trying to remember anything about the movie, which was a really fun experience, to be honest. And this whole thing of, like, going back to Prince Humperdinck, I keep wanting to say the other thing that I said earlier.
Say it, please say it.
I keep wanting to call him Prince Humperdinck.
I love
Anyways,
it.
but this whole Zoo of Death thing, oh my gosh. Whenever I was reading it, I was like, I can't remember this in the movie to save my life. Well, that's because, Carrie, it's not in the movie.
It's not in the
Okay.
movie.
And this whole background of the Zoo of Death situation
Yeah, that
was kind
was
of insane.
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, I will say getting to know the prince better in the book because he is definitely a much more major character in the book than he is in the movie.
Yeah. You get like a whole background of him in the book.
And I didn't enjoy any of it, and I'm not mad that it wasn't in the movie.
Yeah, like we didn't really need it. And he's even like more evil. Like in the movie, he's like a funny evil. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like he's a funny, like stupid evil.
Yep.
In the book, he's like,
He's just straight evil.
yeah, he's like straight evil, like hunter,
He's like,
killing animals for
what's
fun.
the
Has
word for someone who has like no emotions? None. What's that word? I don't know. I
like
can't
no
remember.
humanity or
Like no
something.
humanity, no, because he doesn't even really feel joy or sadness. He doesn't
Mhm.
really care. He makes a point of like in the book of saying that he fakes looking like he's falling in love with Buttercup because he wants people to believe that he's in love with Buttercup so that
Yeah.
he can kill Buttercup.
Mhm.
Like, but he doesn't actually feel any of that. He's not. He's just completely bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this, like, whole, like, Zoo of Death thing, I'm like, "Was this in the movie?" Like, I literally can't remember any of this, and it wasn't at all,
No.
and I was, like, surprised.
So that's where we find out. Okay, so like the prince has like, I'm gonna marry you. She's like, I'm not, I can't love anybody else. And he was all like, I never said anything about love. And she was like, bet. So they run off to the castle and she ends up in like princess school. Basically, they make her a princess of some random tiny little hamlet somewhere so that he can officially marry her, and they train her up to be a princess for years. This goes on for years. Now in the movie, we're told that like years go by and then the prince announces he's going to marry Buttercup. We don't really, and then they're like, although the prince has the right to marry anyone in the land, she did not love him.
And
And that's all they really say.
the way it's written in the book is really funny because, like we said before, it's, like, the abridged version, like, he's writing this fake author, narrator is
Right.
writing the abridged version, and in the book, it's like it pauses the story, the main, like, Princess Bride story, pauses it to do
Dude,
fake
and-
explanations on
yeah.
why things were cut out of the fake original story.
And this
It
is the,
drives you insane. Like, it drives you
it
bonkers.
was too much for me. Honestly, that was the part that I was like, I don't like this. I
Yeah.
like anytime he would interject his own thoughts, I was like, ugh,
Yeah, I was
again.
like, "Oh, he's back. He's
Yeah.
back. Oh
like
my gosh, he's
like
back."
I want to get back to like the story,
Yeah.
not your thoughts on the story. Thank
Yeah,
you very
not your
much. That,
fake thoughts. Your
right.
fake ones. You're
Your
not
fake
even your
thoughts
real
on the
thoughts.
fake story. Like I want to discuss the thoughts with my ladies, not with you, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like wait. So then we find out like the 3 years while the Buttercup is taking princess school, Prince Humperdinck is like really getting into his zoo of death, right? Which is like this 5 layered zoo underground, like 5 levels of underground zoo of death, different animals from all over the world that are super deadly that he can hunt in controlled conditions. So it's not really hunting, you dick.
You humperdick.
Right? So he's all about hunting. That's his thing. He can hunt anything. He has strategies for, and whether it's as small as a hummingbird, as big as an alligator. He can hunt it, he can kill it. Like he knows its weaknesses, whatever. And each level is like, one level is like all the types of critters that have to live in the dark, or all the types of critters that are fast, or all the types of critters that are stealthy, or whatever. But sub level 5 is empty because he's saving that for like the worst predator of predators, or whatever. He's saving that for a super special, which corresponds to, in what is in the movie, the pit of despair.
Yeah.
I like, when I read Zoo of Death, I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
This is what? No. What? And then there was no pit of despair, and then I was like, so I guess the Zoo of Death is the like sub level 5 or whatever. And it was just kind of, the pit of despair is just the words alone, the title alone is so much more poetic than Zoo of Death. Like, so thank you for changing that, William Goldman. You did, it's better this time. However, later in the book, when Fezzik and Inigo are running through the Zoo of Death, that was actually really kind of cool. And
I really liked that.
I really liked that scene.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, back to, we just found out in the movie that Buttercup is going to marry the prince. She is looking all depressed, and she is being presented to her public now, and she's looking all sad sack, even though she's supposed to be the most beautiful woman in the world. In the book,
commoner just like you.
right? Yeah. In the book, she's presented to her people now, and she like smiles and walks among them, and
She's like, she wants to go walk down there.
Right, she wants to go walk with them. She wants them to have the opportunity to see her in all of her beauty. And it's an experience for them. Like, she is gifting the experience of seeing her to the people. Which, again, Buttercup in the book ain't that bright. If I'm a starving, what are they called? Florians? If I'm a starving Florian, I don't care how beautiful you are. I want food. Like,
yeah.
Just saying. So yeah, she's just out there happy to, be beautiful. And at least she gets to live in the palace. But she does get to ride her horse. And this is in the movie and the book. She gets to ride her horse once a day. She takes a lot of joy in being alone, that alone time she has going out for a ride. So she does that. And along come 3 humble circus performers.
Wait, isn't her horse's name Horse?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, wow, that's so creative.
Good job.
Yeah. Real bright, that one, I'm telling you. Anyways, so she's out riding on horse, and she runs across 3 humble circus performers who turn out to, surprise, surprise, be bad guys.
Surprise.
And so she is kidnapped by these 3 guys. It is Fezzik, Inigo, and Vizzini. Vizzini's a Sicilian hunchback in the book. Fezzik is a giant, a Turkish giant, and Inigo is a fencing Spaniard. But he's not just any fencing Spaniard. He is a wizard, which is higher than a master. And sometimes there are no wizards in the world. But once in a great while, there will be 1, maybe 2 at the same time. It's almost unheard of. It's just, I will say, okay, so I have a friend who is a fencer, actually, for the Society of Creative Anachronists? So I don't know. The SCA. They dress up and they sword fight. Well, they do a lot of stuff, but he sword fights. And him and his little like chapter that he's a part of, they watch this movie a lot. A lot of other fencers do. They think this is an excellent movie. The names that they bring up in the sword fights and stuff are actual like fencing masters. It's really, really cool. Anyways, he was telling me that like So I'm sitting here, like, I've watched it with him a couple of times in my life, and I'm like, you know, and he always talks about the sword fighting part, but one time he was like, actually, everybody's favorite part is when Andre the Giant is rhyming on the boat. And I was like, mine too. So even though
Anybody want a peanut?
it's, it is probably one of my all-time favorite sections of the movie is just them on the boat as they're sailing away with Buttercup, and Vincini's like, no more rhyming, I mean it. And then Andre the Giant says, anybody want a peanut? And then Vincini, like, so I want to talk about the casting in this movie in this moment, because the casting is top notch, but specifically these three are so perfectly cast to me. Wallace Shawn as Vincini, Wallace Shawn, who is the Grand Nagus in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, just in case anybody wondered. And Andre the Giant, who rose to fame with wrestling, but also showed up in a lot of like one-off, like would cameo on different sitcoms throughout the 80s. And Mandy Patinkin, who, if y'all don't know, he does have social media accounts with him and his wife, and they are the most wholesome couple in the world. And sometimes their son shows up, and he has dogs, and he goes road tripping, and it is like I cry all the time because he's just like the most wholesome man in the world, the most wholesome couple, like relationship goals. It's just beautiful. But the three of them, the chemistry there is just like they are so well matched in
Mhm.
that casting, and they're the way the script is written, they play off each other so well that, you know, obviously it's hard for me to picture anybody else as these characters while I'm reading the book. But there were definitely some moments with Wesley or with Buttercup or with Prince Humperdinck where the character didn't match in the book the movie character quite the way I expected them to. But these three, Inigo and Fezzik and Vincini, are so well cast. They fit so well with the character in the book. It was just perfect. It was just perfect.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. All those parts are like my humor exactly, and just have me cackling. Even and all their parts in the book are like exact
Yeah. Yeah.
in the book.
It is all your favorite lines from them
Yeah.
over this next scene are straight out of the book. They're the
Mhm.
like kidnapping and then chase scene, from the sword fight to the fight with Fezzik to the Battle of Wits. Like, it is all
It's
word
in the
for
book.
word in the book, and it is like I read through that so fast because I was just excited, and like this is, because this is everybody's favorite parts,
Mhm.
and it was really, really awesome. um the Cliffs of Insanity, it's basically the exact same scene in the book. um they get to the cliffs well, first we have to do the shrieking eels. The shrieking eels are not in the book. They are sharks, which I'm glad that got changed, because the shrieking eels are one of my all-time favorite things in the world. I'm going to bring up the World Kitchen adaptation that was done in 2020 during when everybody was shut down because of coronavirus at the time, and everybody was, kind of like locked up and quarantining in place, and a whole bunch of movie stars. I'm not even gonna list them because there's so many.
Mhm.
Um, recorded different bits while they were at home, different sections while they were at home. But the section with the shrieking eels, somebody had like hooked up a garbage bag to a stick in a pool and was just dragging it through the pool, and I cracked up. And it was, I mean, legit, I can't watch that scene in the actual movie without thinking of the trash bag in the swimming pool. That was brilliant special effects. If you were
It was pretty
locked,
accurate.
it was pretty accurate. If you're locked in the house and you only have so much to work with, like that was brilliant.
The
Whoever,
entire project was giving like you were assigned this project at school
yeah,
and they put it all together for this YouTube video. That's what it literally looked like.
And
Clipped
originally
it
it
all
was
together.
Yep, and originally it was released in little sections,
Mhm.
but you can go on YouTube and we will link it in the show notes and see the whole thing all at once if you want to. It's about an hour long and it's really enjoyable if you
It's
haven't
worth
seen
the
it yet.
watch. It's literally hilarious.
So they get through the shrieking eels, they're climbing up the cliffs of insanity, and this is all straight from the book and the movie are exactly the same through
Mhm.
this. They climb up the rope to the top of the cliffs. The man in black is still climbing behind them. Vizzini says, cut the rope. They cut the rope. The man in black is clinging to the side of the cliff and working his way up, and yet he climbs. And Vizzini says, inconceivable, for like the 19th time.
Mhm.
And then
I
he
wanna
goes,
say, like,
"Hmm,
some background of whenever I read the As You Wish, the memoir
mhm."
by Cary, they were talking about filming that whole section of the Cliffs of Insanity, right?
Right.
And they were talking about how Andre the Giant, he couldn't have anybody, like, on his back or attached to him because he had really bad back issues, neck issues, things like that. And they were talking about the guy who plays
Wallace Shawn being
Wallace
scared of
Shawn
heights.
being so
Mhm.
scared of heights that they were just getting inches off the ground because they were on bicycle seats, like, attached to Andre the Giant, and they were on bicycle seats around him, and they were just getting inches off the ground, and he was already about to pass out. And Andre the Giant was petting his head, being like, "It's okay. You're fine. I got
I
you." Because he was such a sweet soul. He was like a sweet guy. This
he is
huge
and
man.
he was I y'all I warned you I'm gonna cry through this whole episode.
Don't cry.
I'm good. um Wallace Shawn was so terrified. He found out that he was not the first choice for the role, and so he was constantly terrified that they were going to let him go or that he wasn't going to be good enough or he wasn't going to be quite what Rob Reiner had in mind. And then he found out that they were gonna like, no, they're not actually gonna have to climb, and he was like, okay, so he took the role. But he was like, if I had known what they were gonna do, I would not have taken the role. Because like they were gonna have them on a forklift and lift them up a little bit for like camera angles and stuff, and he was panicking. And there was Andre the Giant, like, I got you, dude, it's okay.
And his cognac that he had
And
in
his
his
cognac.
Mhm.
Okay, so Andre the Giant, I remember from when he was a wrestler. So like I remember seeing him do cameos in shows and stuff and him being instantly recognizable, and he was in the news now and then. And I remember when he died, it was just really sad because he was this gentle giant. He was just one of the nicest guys. And so yeah, that's sad.
Yeah,
So they climb the
definitely.
cliffs of insanity, they get to the top, they're gonna have the sword fight. And the sword fight between Mandy Patinkin and Cary Elwes, they trained for months, 8 and 10 hours a day, every single day for months to learn how to fence left-handed and right-handed, to learn the choreographed moves of the fighting, and to learn it so well that they were the ones fencing in every single scene. There was not a stunt double. There was not, a stand-in. It was them through every single clip, every single time. The only time they used a stunt double was for when he flips over the like swoopy whoop bar to do the double flip and land. That was
Mhm.
the only one, but any of the actual sword fighting was all them.
That was such a fun thing to discover, like, after watching the movie, I listened to, like, the memoir and stuff, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's crazy," because I was actually wondering if it
Mhm.
was, like, some type of, like, stunt double thing or something, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool."
I was shocked to find out. Like, I thought that Mandy Patinkin had known fencing before that. Like, I don't know why I thought that, but somewhere in my head, I must have heard that and thought that. And to find out that neither one of them, that like Cary Elwes had taken some like stage fencing
Mhm.
courses, but that was it. And same with Mandy Patinkin, but neither of them had actually studied
Yeah.
fencing. And even Christopher Guest, who's Count Rugen and has a sword fight at the end, he also had not fenced before and had to learn fencing. But of course, he didn't have the big, giant, huge fight at the top of the Cliffs of Insanity.
Yeah.
So, and that sword fight to me, like, I've seen Zorro, I've seen the old Zorro movies, I've seen a lot of old like fencing movies and stuff, but like even the newer Zorro movies with Antonio Banderas, like nothing holds up
And
to the Cliffs of Insanity.
I'm just imagining like this anticipation after all this training and all this stuff, this anticipation to this moment where everyone's watching you do
Mm-hmm.
this scene that you rehearsed and worked on for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it. They did it once and they did it like a million times after that.
Yep. Over and over and
Yeah.
over and over again from different camera angles. And yeah.
I just think that's so cool. Like, I
Now,
wish I could see it, like, the different clips and angles that they did
yeah,
and, like, people watching them do it.
there are absolute tons of outtakes and bloopers on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's worth looking them up. They're hilarious. But what Carrie and I keep referencing is the As You Wish, the Inconceivable Tales from the Making of the Princess Bride by Keri, Elwes. It was really good. I think all three of us listened to the audiobook, right? I have the physical copy and I had been kind of thumbing through it. It felt a little dry. Carrie was like, the audio is amazing. You should listen. So I did. And the audio is amazing. If you are
Yes,
a
they
fan
got
of the,
lots of cameos in there.
it's got tons of cameos in there. It's well done. It's about 7 hours. If you are a huge fan of The Princess Bride, I highly recommend. Like, it's really, really freaking good. And it was available on the Libby app from my library, so I didn't have to like pay anything for it. Use your libraries, folks. So they saved the fencing scene for shooting till the very end so they could get that much more training in. So they shot that scene almost the very last scene of shooting. And I found that really interesting too, because like at that point in the movie, this is the first time, and even in the book, this is the first time that Inigo and the man in black, who we find out is Wesley, meet, right? But in reality, they had been shooting, they had already built a rapport, they were, had been in a ton of scenes together, and this was one of the last ones. So I thought that was kind of funny too, that like they're pretending to meet for the first time, but they already have that screen chemistry because they've been working on it for so long. It was just such a good scene.
It also gave Cary Elwes time to break his toe.
Yes.
Mhm.
He was goofing around with Andre the Giant, and Andre the Giant had an ATV because it was one of the only vehicles that could support him in his size and weight. And he had convinced Cary to try out the ATV, and he ended up breaking his toe. So there are a lot of scenes that you will see, like the scene where he gets Buttercup just before the like he's already got reunited kind of with Buttercup, but she doesn't know it's him yet. And he like sits down and he kicks his leg out. Well, in reality, he was doing that to, relieve the pressure on his
Yeah,
foot
couldn't
from
put any weight on it.
yeah. So he wins the sword fight. The man in black wins the sword fight, but he doesn't kill Inigo because he's like, game recognizes game, right? Like, you're a master. I'm not gonna just kill you. And so he knocks him out and he runs off. And of course, at this point, Vincini is like, hey, Fezzik, like, finish him. And he's like, how do I finish him, boss? And he's like, hit him in the head with the rock. And he's like, that's not very sportsmanlike. And so Vincini runs off. And Fezzik gets it in his head that, like, no, I'm not a jerk. I'm like, we're gonna fight. I'm gonna win, but he's gonna have a shot. And of course they fight. And he loses in large part because, and it's explained in the movie and in the book, that Fezzik has gotten used to fighting like groups of men because one man was too easy. And so in order to make his way through the fighting circuit, he had been fighting groups of people, and he just kind of forgot how to fight one dude. It's different types of moves when you're fighting a group. And the man in black took advantage of that and strangles him, knocks him out, but releases him just in time to make sure he doesn't fully die, right? And then he says, like, I envy you the headache you're going to have in the morning, but dream of large women. And then he runs off.
Yeah.
And so he runs off after Vicini, and he catches up with Vizzini and the Sicilian, this hunchback Sicilian, who Wallace Shawn plays so stinking perfectly. And like Vizzini is like, come any closer, I'm gonna stab her in the neck. He's got his little it's not really a sword, it's
Like a dagger.
like a dagger,
Yeah.
yeah. And he's like got it up against her neck. He's like, come any closer and I'll get her. And the man in black is like, whoa, buddy, I think we can figure something out here. And Vizzini's like, you bested my Spaniard and my giant. Like, I don't know. Like, you're obviously strong. You're obviously smart. But are you as smart as me? And then the battle of wits starts. And he's like, and the man in black is like, I got this iocane powder. I'm gonna poison one of these drinks. And so he goes to poison the drinks, like behind his back, like sneaky sneak. And then Vizzini goes through this dizzying intellect, like, you know, you've studied, so you're, you know, fencing, so you're very smart. And in studying, you would have learned that man is delicate, or whatever he says, like, you, so I clearly cannot choose the glass in front of me. And like he goes through the whole like, which one is he gonna pick, which one is he gonna pick. And I cracked up again because this is in the book when he was like, what in the world is that over there?
Yeah. That part cracks me up.
Because like I don't, again, it's one of those that like I feel like this is such an ad, like in real life that would have been an ad-libbed moment, so it
Yeah.
probably isn't in the book. No, it was in the book.
Yeah.
So he switches the glasses while the man in black's head is turned the other way, and then they drink, and the man in black is like, you lose. And Vizzini is like, you only think that you've won. And he laughs and then he dies. And
Well, the way, this is my humor right here. He's like literally cracking up laughing, and he's like, ha, ha, and then passes out, dies.
yep. And it's freaking hilarious. And then Buttercup is like, you really put the poison in your own glass? And he was like, they were both poisoned. I've been spending the last 3 years building an immunity to iocane powder. And
Of
she's like,
course he has.
and you know, in again in the book, dumb Buttercup is like, gasp. But in the movie, Buttercup is like, oh, well, that was smart. And like they move on. And but she's like, he's like dragging her. In the book, he drags her forever. I don't know. This is the part in the book where I was like, oh wait, this part's boring. It's just like,
Yeah.
they run and then he lets her catch her breath, and then they run, and then he lets her catch their breath, and then they run, and they do that for like 37 times.
Yeah. I think at this point in the book is when it started to go a little downhill for me. Like I was really starting to be like losing my attention drastically.
Almost like the man in black went down the hill.
Yeah, literally. The man in black's going down the hill, and that's where my mind is going. Because it's almost like I felt like there were more like notes from the fake narration, the
Yeah.
narration notes. There were even more. And then it's like,
and then they turn into like 4 and 5 pages of his like break-in
yes.
thoughts and notes rather than just like a couple of paragraphs.
Yeah.
So
it felt like it was just getting worse and worse, and I was just like, okay, but I just want to read the main plot here.
Exactly. So then, like, basically, we find out, like, cutscene to the prince. His like, he's trying to like track her down, and we find out that like he's probably the one that hired the murderers to kill her. But now that it's obviously not working because he did not consider this man in black person, like, he's an unknown variable. So now he's just tracking her down, and he thinks that he's gonna like, this is kind of a fun game. I'll track her down, whatever. And so he's tracking her down, and he realizes that, you know, there was a sword fight. He realizes that someone's bested a giant. He finds Vizzini's dead body, and yet he, like, in the distance, Wesley, or the man in black, can kind of see what's going on, but Buttercup still doesn't realize that this is Wesley. And she is like, where are you taking me? What are you doing? My fiance is gonna find me. He will find you. He'll kill you. Like, I can promise you'll be treated fairly if you just give me back, like, whatever. And the man in black is like, so you love him, huh? And she's like, I never said I love him. And again, in the movie, this is really dramatic, and I got it. I was like, Buttercup's my girl. Like, she's just doing what she has to do. I don't love him, but he's the prince. I don't have a choice, right? But in so like I got that. In the book, she's just like, no, I don't love him, but like at least I get a nice dress and a nice house and like, so like it was very, again, she's just kind of dumb or whatever. But in the movie, she is very like, you know, I've loved once, and it was a poor farm boy, and the Dread Pirate Roberts killed him, and and he was like, well, I kill lots of people, whatever. And she was like, whatever. And he was like, you've never loved, you don't know what love is, don't lie to me. And she was like, you know, what were the words, the exact words? I love them. Like, I have loved more deeply than a man like you could ever know. And he like slaps her, goes to slap her or whatever. And then he turns his back because he sees the prince coming.
Mm-hmm.
And she shoves him and says, you can die too for all I care. And like, this is when the even more like famous moment when he's like, as you wish, as he's like down the hill.
Wait. Whenever they were going back to the YouTube video where they're doing like this reenactment and all this stuff,
Mhm.
whenever that scene, when they were trying to reenact this scene, they were throwing clothes down
the stairs.
Clothes with a wig glued to it down the steps.
Yep.
Rolling down the steps to show, like, to indicate somebody rolling
tumbling down the hill. Yep. I grew up someplace where we had like big sand dunes, and like we used to like run down them or shove each other down them when I was a kid. And I remember very specifically telling my cousin, you could die too for all I care, just shoving her like, so, because we can. But then like Buttercup, like, oh my sweet Wesley, what have I done? And she tumbles down the hill too. She just like flings herself down the hill. I feel like you could have walked. It was a little dramatic. Like,
you could have scooted on your butt down.
Scooted. Like, I mean, anything. She just like head first dove. Like, damn, girl, slow down. So they have their like romantic like moment where she recognizes him, and he, she's like, I thought you were dead, and he was like, death cannot stop a love like ours, and it's romantic or sweet or whatever. In the book, this is when the narrator cuts in to give his notes for 36 years, and I don't remember any of them because honestly they weren't important.
Oh wait, no, I remember them.
Okay, all right, Cary, go for it, your turn.
He was saying that he was like, my wife was upset with me because I didn't write in a reunion scene between Wesley and Buttercup at this moment, because it immediately skips to them walking away to the
fire swamp.
The fire swamp. And he's like, I didn't write in a reunion scene because the original author, the original fake author, didn't have a reunion scene.
Morgenstern.
Yeah, S. Morgenstern, the fake author. He's like, so send in an email or a letter at this publishing company linked here. And there's literally a link in the Kindle for some reason, in the Kindle book. Send it to this publishing company at this link here if you want the reunion scene, and we'll like email it or mail it out or something like that. And it was like, but it's fake. It's not real.
It's not real. It's not real.
I'm like, I don't understand. Somebody help me. Someone sedate me. I can't take it.
And it was like an actual address to an actual place, as the full street address, the city, state, zip code, the whole shebang.
If you want the reunion bonus,
and they were like, send in a self-addressed stamped envelope, and so it was.
And he keeps bringing it up later. He's like, at the very end, he's like, I still haven't written the reunion scene, and I was like, you're not real. Shut up, you're not real.
Are you okay, Cary?
No, it was so upsetting me.
Oh Lord. So they run to the fire swamp, And Prince Humperdinck is all like, oh, look, they're running into the fire swamp. They'll never make it. We'll just catch them on the other side. They'll either die in the fire swamp or we'll catch them when they come out. And so we don't really hear from him for a hot minute. But we go through the fire swamp. And of course, there's the lightning quicksand. There's the R.O.U.S.s, rodents of unusual size. And we see it's the same. The book and the movie is the same. It's, the fire, it's a fire swamp. So there's the fire spurts. Her dress catches at one point. He puts it out. She falls into the lightning quicksand. He dives in after her and saves her. And R.O.U.S., he's all like, they don't exist. And then, of course, like 2 minutes later, he gets attacked.
I remember this is one of the only scenes that I remember from the movie from watching it when I was younger. And I remember this scaring me. Like, giving me
It's scary.
nightmares when I was younger, like the rats and stuff.
The rats are scary.
Yeah. And honestly, Buttercup was pissing me off in the movie. During the rat scene. I'm like, can you help your man? Like, you're upsetting me. It wasn't, she was just standing there. She was just like, standing there looking at him, getting his shoulder bit into. Yep. I'm like, can you do something, lady?
No. Now that you know Buttercup from the book, are you shocked?
No.
See? Mm-hmm. So, they face their trials and tribulations like you would expect in the fire swamp, but then they do come out the other side. And Wesley explains how the Dread Pirate Roberts works while they're walking through the fire swamp. He's basically like, obviously I'm not the Dread Pirate Roberts, but I am, because the name is what matters. And every time the Dread Pirate Roberts decides he has made enough money and he wants to retire, he kicks off his crew, takes on a whole new crew and his like apprentice or whatever. And he calls the apprentice the Dread Pirate Roberts and pretends to be the first mate until the crew starts to buy it, and then he retires. And it's been going through that a few times at this point. The real Dread Pirate Roberts has been retired for 15 years and living like a king in Patagonia. So now he is the Dread Pirate Roberts because nobody would respect the Dread Pirate Wesley. So Buttercup seems to understand that. He's like, now that I found you, I will train the next one, and then you and I can retire to wherever you want. And she's like, okay, whatevs. And they come out of the fire swamp, and the prince and the count are there with their jerks. And they're all like, okay, we're going to kill you now. And she's like, will you promise not to hurt him? And they're all like, what? And she's like, will you promise not to hurt him? He's a sailor on the pirate ship Revenge. Like, so she basically convinces the prince to like, I'll come with you, but you have to let him live. And Wesley's like, are you like, what? And so I think everyone can agree that was dumb. Mm-hmm. And this is the one moment in the movie where Buttercup is dumb. Like, we all knew that's not going to happen. That's not, like, everybody knows that's not going to work. So,
and Prince Humperdinck is like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, he's like, sure, whatever you want. If it makes you happy, sure. And so he sends, like, he puts her up on the horse with him, and they're gonna ride off. And he turns to the count and he's like, send him to the pit. And it's same in the book, basically, like, take him to the zoo of death. And then we move on. Where are we now? What happened?
No, he finds out that he sees
the count has 6 fingers on his right hand.
Yeah.
And then there's a weird like guitar riff. And then he knocks him out. We find out that scene in Cary Elwes' book, he says that they were having a hard time making it look really real. So he told Christopher Guest, like, go ahead and hit me with the sword. Like, just tap me a little bit so that I can react more appropriately. And Christopher Guest knocks his ass out. Just bonk. Sends him to the hospital. Actually. And that is the clip that they use. That is the take that they used in the movie. So what you see him passing out, he for real was passed out.
He woke up in the hospital.
Getting stitches.
With his costume still on.
With the same doctor that fixed his toe. So, now mind you, they did film all in England and like in smaller areas in England. So like running into the same doctor at the local hospital is not that uncommon, I wouldn't think. But that's still freaking funny because the
Yeah.
doctor was like, okay, Zorro, like, what's going on? But
Yeah.
so then we move forward. Buttercup is like has agreed to marry Prince Humperdinck again because she's like, at this point, I just want to make sure that Wesley lives, you
Mhm.
know? And she truly genuinely believes that the prince has allowed who he believes is just a sailor, but we know is Wesley, to go back to his ship, which we know is not true. And so she's feeling all this like regret for having like told him to go, and she's decided that like I'm not going to be able to make it. So she's having these nightmares, right? And we cut to like she's in a nightmare, but we don't really know it yet. And then we cut to, in the book and in the movie, the grandfather pops out and he's like, or the Fred Savage wakes up. He's like, no, that's not how that happened. She doesn't marry Prince Humperdinck. And the grandfather's like, do you actually want me to read this or do you want me to stop? In the book, what happens is he says the kid who the narrator is recounting his youth, and he is saying that when my dad read this to me, I stopped him and told him that's not right. There's no way she marries Prince Humperdinck. Who kills Humperdinck? There's no way he wins. And his dad's like, I'm going to stop. You're obviously upset. And he does stop and leaves him to stew on this all night long. And this kid is going through this like, why would she do that? Why would she, how does he live? How is there's no way that's fair. That's not right. And like, has a really hard time all night long and has like existential crisis about it. It's actually, I will say that that's kind of a part in the book that I did enjoy, of the narrator's cutting in, because he brings up, I have it marked, but I have like 19,000 tabs and I'm not going to try to find which one it is. Um, but he talks about how the lesson that he learned from this is that life isn't fair.
Mhm.
And sometimes the good people die. Sometimes the bad guys win.
Yeah.
And he kind of goes into depth about how like it sucks, but that's just how life is sometimes. And in the movie, Fred Savage says, who kills Humperdinck? And the grandfather says, nobody, he lives. And he yells, that's not fair. Fred Savage yells, that's not fair. And the grandfather says, who said life was fair? And so I like, it was different in the movie and the book, but I love that they brought that in, because honestly, like, we all kind of know that this movie does end as a happily ever after, but the fact that they have some of these, like, they had to go through some shit to get there
Yeah.
because life isn't fair. I kind of liked that part.
Yeah.
So we flash into Wesley's in the pit,
Mhm.
and or in the fifth level of the Zoo of Death, whichever, and they're healing him up. The albino is trying to heal him up, heal his wounds, get him in good condition, make sure he's fed, make sure he's, his shoulder is fixed up from the R.O.U.S. and all that jazz. And Wesley's trying to determine, like, where am I? Obviously, this is not good right now, like, but I am being cared for, so there must be something really bad coming. And in the book, we kind of get in the mind of Wesley, and he's decided he's going to like meditate into himself in order
Yeah.
to get through whatever torture they might have. And sure enough, the prince comes down, and in the book, the prince tortures him a few times.
Mhm.
Just regular torture, like setting his hands on fire and just typical what you would consider torturous type situations, lots of pain. And Wesley pretends to be in pain, but in reality, he has like meditated and centered himself so fully that he's not feeling it. And Count Rugen kind of sees that. He's kind of caught on to this. So Count Rugen has devised this machine, this torture machine, to suck life away from you. And the prince is like, yeah, go ahead, do it, whatever. I don't care. I'm busy trying to convince everyone that I love my wife so that when she's kidnapped on our wedding or killed on our wedding night, everybody will have a ton of sympathy for me and we can go to the war with Gilder. And Florin and Gilder, by the way, not real countries. Again, this story is fake, but he tries to talk in the book. He talks about like the history of the countries and the rich heritage and all this jazz. So it like builds it up like it could be. No, they are not.
Yeah.
They're forms of currency. They're not real. They're not countries. So in the book, Count Rugen is torturing Wesley. Buttercup and the prince are going through like a bajillion and a half wedding prep things for like 30 days of parties, basically, like having dignitaries come from around and hosting dinners and banquets and all this jazz. And so he keeps playing doting fiance. She has told him, I don't want to marry you. I want Wesley back.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, I'll tell you what. We don't even know if he still loves you because you were kind of cold about leaving him in the fire swamp. So why don't you write a letter and we'll send it out, my four fastest ships, and if he wants to come back, he can. And she was all like, okay, but you're going to have to help me write the letter. So he helps her write the letter.
Oh gosh.
And he says, now in the movie, he's just like, write a letter. I'll send it out if he comes back, but please consider me an alternative to death. Cause she's like, I will kill myself if I
Yeah.
can't marry him. And he was like, hold up.
Honestly, she's threatening to kill herself like left and right.
She really is.
Constantly.
She really is. There's a shortage of perfect breasts in this world. Like,
Honestly, I love that line.
it's a really good line. But she's constantly threatening to kill herself. And he's like, please consider me an alternative to death, which I think is hilarious. So in the book, though, he's all like, I'll help you write the letter, but I don't know. You were kind of a bitch. You know,
Yeah. You were kind of a bitch.
he's like really kind of like manipulating her into thinking that like you're the problem here. You know? So anyways, he tells her he's going to do that. We all know the truth, but she's dumb Buttercup. And so they keep doing their banquets. And in the meantime, Humperdinck has told his head of security dude that like, hey, I've heard a rumor that Gilder's going to try and kidnap my wife on our wedding night.
He's creating gossip.
He is. And the head of security is like, I haven't heard that. None of my spies have heard any of that. And the
Oh
prince
my
is
god,
like,
should I quit? I haven't heard that yet.
yeah, he's starting to doubt himself. Like, so now he's like, maybe I'm not as good at my job as I thought I was. And the prince is like, yeah, maybe you're not. And so like you think you're the best? Like my spies are better than your spies kind of crap. It's hilarious. And then at one point in the book, he's like, okay, I've got everything secure, but I'm going to turn in my resignation. And the prince is like, crap, I can't have this guy quit. I actually need him.
Yeah.
So he like confesses his plan very quickly, very rushed. He's like, there are no spies. There are no kidnappers. I'm going to kill her. I need you to help me settle in Gilder when we win the war. And the head of security is like, oh, well, all right. Like,
Yeah. Oh, that was the whole plan. Got it.
like, yeah, like, oh, okay, cool. So in the meantime, he's like, before he spills the beans, he's telling the chief of security, like, I want you to form a brute squad. I want you to empty the thieves forest. There can't be nobody out there. We're gonna arrest everybody. They're gonna have to be under lock and key, and you know, until I know my bride is secure, right? And the chief of security is all like, that's going to be hard to do. And he's like, figure it out. So he does. He forms a brute squad, right? And he hires all these people to whatever. And this is when we find Inigo is in the thieves' forest, drunk as a skunk. And they're trying to send like the brute squad to go get him, but like even drunk, he's better swordsman than any of the brute squad. And so they like get the biggest brute to go get him. And the biggest brute turns out to be Fezzik. So
They're
Fezzik,
reunited and it feels so
and let
good.
me tell you, in the book, it's cute. In the movie, when he like pulls out Fezzik's giant hand and puts his hand in it and is like looking like little hand, big hand, and then looks up at Andre the Giant, and his face just lights up, and he says, "It's you." And Fezzik goes, "True." I was like, "Oh, like, girl, don't cry, don't cry." Like,
The whole part of Fezzik trying to get him sober was hilarious. He's
and,
like dunking his head in the water.
and in the again, this is in the book. Like, he
Yeah.
puts him in the bathtub of hot water until he starts to sweat out the brandy or whatever he was drinking, and then he's like, and then he fills it with ice water and he dunks him in the ice. So like he does that in the book, not the head so much as just his whole body, but
Yeah.
it's still there. And he kind of like catches up Fet and Ego on what's going on. Like, the Count Rugen is the six-figure man. The prince is marrying Buttercup tonight. And like, and he
Vicini
goes
is
like,
dead.
Vincini is dead. And then he goes like, wait, the six-finger man? Like, if
Yeah.
he doesn't care about anything else, he's laser focus. And he's like, okay, so we're going to have to do something. I got a plan. We're going to find the man in black, because if he could best Vincini, then he can help us make a plan. And we have to find the man in black because he's obviously really freaking smart. And neither of us are smart enough to come up with a plan. So I do love, in the book, we kind of hear that, like, we get the whole thought process as to how they realize they're not smart enough to make a plan, but they're making an excellent plan
Mm-hmm.
to find a guy to make a plan. Like, and it's beautiful. It's not as well played out in the movie, but it's still pretty cool that he's like, we're gonna find the man in black. And then of course, this is when Buttercup figures out that like he never sent the letter. And so she's like, she confronts him and she's like, you never sent the letter, like, I'm not gonna marry you, I'll be dead by morning. And like, he, Prince Humperdinck is finally like, you know what, you're just a bitch, and like shuts her in a room. And then runs down to the prince or runs down to Wesley and is like, she truly loves you. And in another world, you might have had a chance, but this is my world, so die now. And he
Yeah.
flings
You're
her,
done.
and Count Rugen yells, "Not to 20!" And and like the prince is like, yeah. And Wesley's like body off of the machine is screaming this sound like nobody's ever heard before. It's this
He's got
wail.
he's got suction cups like on his head and on his nipples.
And in the book, he has suction cups everywhere, on his
Mhm.
eyelids, in his nose, on his tongue, in his armpits, like, very descriptive. In the movie, it's just ears and nipples.
Yeah.
And chin. I think he had one on his chin. I don't know. Like, so, but anyways, he's screaming, and the sound is going, it's like this weird death scream, right? And it's going through everywhere, and everyone, like, outside the castle, in the grounds, out in the forest, hears this scream, and they all kind of stop and look around like, that's fucked. What is that? Like, and Inigo right away is like, that is the sound of ultimate suffering. And he knows that that's the man in black, because the man in black is the only person who would have any reason to be feeling ultimate suffering, because he knows that Buttercup is his one true love, and he's marrying Humperdinck. So he's like, follow that sound. So he gets Fezzik to part the crowd, and they run towards the castle to try and find him. And they try to find the pit of despair. In the book, this is when we end up going through the death zoo, murder zoo, whatever, zoo of death.
The murder zoo?
Murder zoo.
That sounds horrible. That sounds even worse.
I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So anyways, and they go in, they find the albino looking for a wheelbarrow, because he's all like, I'm going to carry out this dead guy with a wheelbarrow. And they accidentally knock out the albino instead. And in the book, the entrance is obvious. There's a door. In the movie, there's like a secret knot in a tree, and he has to find it, and he prays to his father over the sword.
This part's hilarious to me.
And he's just like waving back and forth with his sword. and then he slams into a tree and nothing happens, and he just like fuck, and he like leans onto the tree and he leans his head right onto the spot and the door opens. In the book, there's a door, an obvious door, and it's unlocked, and he's like, let's go in here. And that was a mistake because they're now in level 1 of Zoo of Death. And I don't remember which things came first, but there were snakes and there were bats, and what was the third thing? And then there was the spider.
Yeah, I think
I don't
that was
remember.
yeah, that was it, I think.
It was a really excellent scene in the book. It's worth reading if you want to go look up that scene. I really enjoyed it.
That was a good one.
But they go through the different levels of the death zoo of death.
The murder zoo. It's
Murder
like,
zoo. Pretty much. And so they take advantage of each other's friendship to get through this. This is really what gets them through it. Not even so much their strengths as their friendship. And they get through it and they find Wesley and he's dead. And Inigo right away is like, I'm not giving up. Let's go see Miracle Max. And this is where I, like a schoolgirl, squeal every time because this is my favorite part. Miracle Max is great. So they show up at the door. They're like, we need a miracle. And he was like, come back later. The king's stinking son fired me. Like, and then it's Billy Crystal, who is like, again, perfectly cast. And there are, again, a crap ton of bloopers. He was told to basically, you can ad lib, do whatever you got to do. And there's so many bloopers on YouTube of things that could not go in the movie because they were not necessarily PG. They're freaking hilarious.
mm-hmm.
And I've heard many, not just in the As You Wish memoir, but the lots of other interviews and stuff where everybody talks about how like they were cracking up so much with Billy Crystal that there were a few times that people had to leave the set, leave the scene, like because it was they couldn't control their laughter and they were ruining take after take that way. So they get to Miracle Max. We need a miracle. He's like, I don't do that anymore. Like, I might kill the guy you're trying to save. And they were like, he's already dead. And he was like, well, I'll check him out. So they bring him in, and it turns out he's only mostly dead. And they use the bellows to try to figure out like what's going on in there. And they pump some air into his lungs. And what have Miracle Max says, what have you got worth living for? And he says, true love. And everybody's like, true love, true love. And Max is like, what he said was to blame and what we know. Like, and this is Carol Kane when she comes running around the corner and she goes, liar, liar. And Miracle Max yells, get back, witch. And she goes,
like, I'm not a witch.
I'm not a witch, I'm your wife. It's my favorite line of any movie probably ever. I have said that so many times to so many people that I'm not even married to, but I think it's funny. So, it's my favorite. But Miracle Max makes a pill and they coat it in chocolate. In the book, it's supposed to bring him back to life, but not forever. Or at least that's kind of how I read it. I had to go back and kind of reread that section a couple of times. Like, wait, because I don't think that he was supposed to live forever. I think was supposed to bring him back to life for a certain amount of time, 40 minutes to an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was an hour and they messed up the recipe. So it ended up being like 45 minutes instead.
Right. In the movie, we just know he's going to come back to life. Mm-hmm. There doesn't seem to be any time limit on it. So, but they give him the pill when they're on back at the castle wall, and I knew this was going to be the longest episode ever. Sorry, guys. But they're back at the castle wall. Wesley starts to wake up.
Storming the castle.
I love that part.
That is such a good one. There's so many good lines, and I know that we could get stuck in the lines if that's all we talked about, because we could make an episode of just the great lines from this movie.
Yeah, really.
So they go to storm the castle. They get to the castle wall. Wesley's waking up, but he can't stand up or anything. He can just move his head, and he's like, what the hell's going on? So they kind of recap him, and he was like,
You've
What
been
do you want me
mostly
to
dead
do?
all day.
So he's like, what do you want me to do? Like, what are our assets? And he was like, his strength might steal your brains. And he's like, nah, it's nothing. We can't do it. And he's like, well, if I had a Holocaust cloak, and then of course Andre the Giant pulls out this giant cloak, and he's like this one. He's like, why didn't you list that with the assets? If only I had a wheelbarrow. He's like, where did you put that albino? Like, so they formulate a plan, and they decide they're gonna like put Fezzik in the wheelbarrow with the Holocaust cloak and set him on fire. And he comes, and they do that, and Eagle's like pushing him, and
They're
he's
literally
yelling,
like this.
yeah, like
They're like
barely, because I
hanging out.
mean, it's Andre the Giant you're trying to lift in this wheelbarrow, and you've got Keri Elwes on your back. Like, you're not gonna move very fast. And there's Andre the Giant, Fezzik doing, I am the Dread Pirate Wobbats. There will be no survivors.
Oh my god, I love that part.
Oh, I will not be dead, but soon you will be dead. Like, it is such a good part. And all of the brute squad that are at the castle gate are like, split. I'm out.
Yeah,
Like,
they're run for their lives.
they're done. And then the one like chief of security dude is like, you can't go in there. And they're like, give me the key. And he's like, what key? I don't have a key. And they're like, that one right there that you're holding. Oh, this key.
Yeah, he's like, oh, this one.
Break his arm. Oh, you mean this key?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they let him. They get into the castle, and like they can hear the commotion in the chapel where Buttercup is marrying Humperdinck. They can hear the commotion, and I don't remember the name of the bishop, that actor, but he is like, marriage.
Maui. And this is in the book.
It's in the book. Marriage is what brings us together today. Marriage, that blessed arrangement, a dream within a dream. And all like we're hearing the like, stand your ground from the outside. Like we can hear the commotion. And so Prince Humperdinck is like, speed it up, let's go. And this is in the book. And he's like, okay, Bishop, sir, can you get to the end, please? And of course, he's in the book, he's like deaf and has a speech impediment. So he's like, the one love. And he's like, no, come on, can we speed it? Like, let's go.
Man
Say
and
man,
wife.
man and wife. And so they man and wife, they run, and Count Rugen runs to figure out what's going on, and Inigo like catches eyes with him and is like, hello. And the Count Rugen is like, nah, get him, and sends like the goons to like, and Inigo just like knocks out the goons, like boom, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, like done. And Count Rugen is like, oh, and then turns around and bolts. Be like, not today, Satan, like out. So
Wait, no, this next part is one of my favorite parts. Whenever he chases after the Count and he's trying to get in the door because the Count like runs to a door and like locks it, right?
right,
So Inigo is trying to get into the door and he's like, Fezzik, I can't get in, I can't get in. And then Fezzik's like, well, I can't leave like Wesley here because like Wesley can't even stand because he's still like
mostly
half
dead.
dead.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I can't get in, Fezzik, help me. And he's like, keep trying to bang in the door. He's like literally like hopping up in the air to bang into the door. So Fezzik literally puts Wesley's arms into one of
Like the suit of armor.
Yeah, the suit of armor, and like hangs in there and then runs away to go. And so Wesley
And this is in the book.
Yes.
Like,
Oh my gosh, I love that part. Like I just like felt the stress of Inigo and him trying to get
yup.
into the door and him like being like yelling at his friend who could barge through, and it was just so funny.
It was hilarious. And again, the best parts of the book are the movie. That's like, if the book is the abridged version of S. Morgenstern's tale, then the movie is the abridged version of this book. And it is perfect. So Inigo runs after Count Rugen, and he's gonna, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. And he's like chasing, and they kind of start to fight, but then we cut to like Fezzik looking around the hallway, like, where did Wesley go? Where did the man in black go? Because he's disappeared. And then we cut back to Count Rugen. And this is where like everything just like cuts to all these scenes. So I'm going to try to basically Inigo fights with Count Rugen. Hold on, I'm going to need this. Inigo fights with Count Rugen and keeps saying, you know, like Count Rugen stabs him in the gut. And Inigo thinks he's like, this might be over. But then, like, all the training, all of the masters that he learned from are in his head telling him, like, no, you need to stop the wound, but you don't get to give up now. And so he like stuffs his hand into his shirt to like stop the bleeding into the wound and continues to fight. And Count Rugen is like shocked that this dude just got up and is still fighting, and he's starting to like fall backwards, and Inigo is doing his, you know, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya, you killed my father, prepare to die. And like stabs Count Rugen in the shoulder, and then stabs him in the other shoulder, and then like says, you know, promise me money, you know, anything that you want, promise me all my dreams, like anything that you could ask for, you know, promise me anything that I want. He goes, anything that you want. And he goes, I want my father back, you son of a bitch. And this is the part where I'm going to cry,
I
because it
love this.
turns out that in real life, Mandy Patinkin's father had died about 10 years before. And he was very, very close to his father. And somewhere in his head, he thought, and he tells the story that somewhere in his head, he kind of felt like if he could take this part, if he could win, if he could get Count Rugen, he could get a piece of his father back. And anytime I hear anybody talk about that story, I just like, because it's a moving part of the movie anyways. Anybody who's lost someone that they're super close to like that knows that deep pain, that deep hurt, and that desire to like, I would do anything, anything. And to know that in that moment, Mandy Patinkin was thinking about his father when he said those words, it just breaks me every time. So Count Rugen is dead. Inigo is badly injured, but he runs out of the room to go and try to regroup with everybody. We find Wesley lying in bed while Buttercup is trying to kill herself.
Well, but right
Like you
before
do.
Buttercup walks in, she is talking to like the king, or you know, like
The king and queen, yeah.
Prince Humperdinck's
The
father.
old senile king and
Yeah.
queen.
And so, like, she gives him a kiss on the cheek, and she's like, "I'm gonna go kill myself now. This is the last time I'll see you." And then he's like, "Okay." And then
Yep.
he's like, "She just kissed me on the cheek."
Yeah.
And she's just like, "Oh, she's like devastated. He's like, "Oh, he doesn't even care. Okay, cool, cool,
Yep.
cool, cool, cool."
So she goes into the bedroom, into the prince's suite. She finds a dagger. She's going to kill herself. But there's Wesley on the bed, and he says, there's a shortage of perfect breasts in this world. It would be a pity to destroy those. And she, Wesley! And she jumps on him. And he's like, gently. And she's like, why would I have to be gentle? And he's like, gently. And then she's like, I got married. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. And he's like, but did you say I do? And she's like, no. And he's like,
Then I
then
don't
you
count.
didn't. Wouldn't you agree, Your Highness? And there's the prince at the door. And he's all like, I'm going to kill you. And he's like, no, to the pain. And they're like, what? And so he basically like says like, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to destroy you, but in a way that leaves you mutilated, but still alive. So you have to live with your shame for the rest of your life. And Prince Humperdinck is basically like, I don't like that idea. And
I
Wesley's
give
like,
up.
then, like, sit down, and she's gonna tie you up. And so she goes to tie him up, and Inigo comes to the door, like finds them, and Wesley starts to like stand up and get up, and he's all like, "Oh, help him! He needs help." And Buttercup's like, "Why does he need help? Well, he's been mostly dead all day." And you know, so like, but Prince Humperdinck is tied up at this point. They're all together, and now they need to leave, and they go to the window because Fezzik's out there yelling, "Hey, lady!" like. And so they all come to the window, and there's Fezzik out there with 4 beautiful white horses, and they jump out the window. Fezzik catches them. They get on the horses. They ride away happily ever after. And then we flash to the grandpa reading to Fred Savage, and Fred Savage is like, well, if they're, you know, that was it, that just ends. And he was like, well, this is a kissing part, you don't want to hear that. And he was like, no, It's okay. You can do it. And so he says, of all the kisses in all the world, there are 5 greatest. This one blew them all the way. And then that was beautiful, whatever. But then Grandpa gets up to go and says, you need to rest. You're sick or whatever. And says, Fred Savage says, you can come back tomorrow if you want. And the grandpa says, as you wish. And then the end. That's my favorite part because that was perfect. So yeah, thoughts, ladies?
Love it. Love it all.
Love it.
Love it.
Love it. Legit, if we hadn't got the narrator breaking in every other freaking moment in the book, it definitely would have been a 5 for me. The movie is a 5.
Totally.
But
It really would have.
It killed it for me. There were quite a few times where the story was building. And
Why
then
are you trying to ruin the vibe?
Pretty
You're
much.
ruining the vibe.
Yeah.
You're bringing the vibe down here.
But the movie's a straight 5. The book is, I think, worth it.
Yeah, totally agree.
But yeah. That brings us to a question of the episode, which isn't really a question. It's just something fun that I wanted to do after watching The World Kitchen again on YouTube last night. I call it the quote unquote remake, the air quotes remake. I thought to myself, if they remade The Princess Bride, what would it be now? Right? How would we cast it? So let's talk about our dream cast. I want to start because I have one that I don't know if you guys thought. I said the bishop or the clergyman, whoever he was. I thought of one earlier today, and I think that he's just obvious. My dream cast for the clergyman would be Adam Sandler.
It'd be good.
That would be good. That would be good. I had for him, I put, because I saw someone say this and I can't get this out of my head, but someone said Will Ferrell.
Oh, okay.
And I thought that was a good one.
That's a good one.
I picked Matt Berry. He plays Laszlo in What We Do in the Shadows, and he does the funniest accents.
Okay.
So, okay.
Nope. Yep, I get that. I don't have these written down in any particular order, but I don't have anybody for Count Rugen. I don't have anybody written down for that.
Okay, so for him, I did Adam Driver.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so for Count Rugen, I have Adam Driver, and for Humperdinck, I have Daniel Radcliffe, because I think that would be a really funny combination. Because I don't know if you've seen The Lost City, which has Sandra Bullock, Channing Tatum, and it's about a romance author and all this stuff. And it has Daniel Radcliffe as an evil or a bad guy, and he's really funny in it. And I see him as that character being Humperdinck in this. And if you see that movie, you'll see that as this character. But also for the Count, this is going to sound really weird, but I was thinking of evil Anne Hathaway from The Witches too. If you did something really weird with it.
Yes.
And made Anne Hathaway how she's had this evil type character essence to her. That's what I was thinking too.
Who do you guys have for Buttercup and Wesley? Because I couldn't think of anybody for Wesley really, because I don't watch a lot of newer stuff, and I feel like you would need a fresher face. So I don't know a lot of fresher faces.
Lindsay, you go.
I chose Timothée Chalamet.
Okay.
I have him, but I have him for somebody else.
Oh, that's funny.
Who do you have for Wesley?
For Wesley, okay, I have Ray. If I butcher this, sorry about that. Reggae John Page. He plays Simon in Bridgerton because if you've ever seen Dungeons and Dragons movie,
yes,
yeah,
he plays this one character in it. He has the dry humor for this movie that's perfect for it, and he has the swordsmanship, everything.
He's good.
He would be perfect Wesley. and I will die on that hill. For my buttercup, it was really hard to pick a buttercup. Like, honestly, I just, like, pick somebody random. I said Elle Fanning.
Oh, that would actually be cute.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not bad.
That would be
So.
cute. I picked Megan Fox.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Because I think that she could pull off the dumb.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Robin Wright could not pull off dumb Buttercup. She just couldn't. She's not there. But I think Megan Fox could.
Okay.
Florence Pugh.
I almost picked Florence Pugh. I almost picked Florence Pugh.
She's so good. I like her.
Oh,
Yeah.
who is? I'm not going to be able to think of her name. She played Enola Holmes. And
Seven in
and Seven in what's it called? Stranger Things.
Millie Bobby Brown.
Millie Bobby Brown would make a good Buttercup.
Yeah. I can see that.
So for Miracle Max and Valerie, I just have those at the top. First of all, we could just go with Billy Crystal and Carol Kane again.
Yeah, true.
They were great. But I have two other options for Miracle Max, both of which I think would be excellent.
Okay.
Jack Black.
Okay.
And Wallace Shawn, who played Vincini, would make an excellent Miracle Max.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you guys have?
I have two as well. Martin Short.
Ooh.
Or Bill Hader.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay.
I don't have anybody for Valerie other than Carol Kane. Because honestly, she just did it so good.
Two for her.
All right, what you got?
Yeah, you go, Lindsay.
Catherine O'Hara.
Mm-hmm.
Or Maya Rudolph.
Ooh,
Okay,
Maya Rudolph would be excellent.
That's a good one.
All right, what you got, Carrie?
Okay, so I only have one for each of them. So for Miracle Max and Valerie, I did Melissa McCarthy and her husband.
Oh, yes, that would be so good. Oh, what's his face and what's her face? Oh, what? Crap. The guy
Nick Offerman and his wife.
Yes. How I said, what's her face and what's his face, and you came up with.
Knew.
I love you guys so much.
I was thinking of them in Umbrella Academy.
Oh, they would be so perfect. They would be good too. All right,
wait, Lindsay, did you have a Humperdinck and Rugen?
I did, yeah.
Okay, wait, what is yours for those? Because I didn't.
My Count Rugen, I went with Tom Hiddleston.
Ooh.
Okay.
And then for my, I love him.
Who doesn't?
For my Prince Humperdinck, I went with Nicholas Hoult.
Okay, I was trying to fit him somewhere. I was trying to. I feel like he's too cute to be him.
That's fair.
Like, I would like him too much.
It's fair, yeah.
So I didn't have anybody for Rugen, but for Prince Humperdinck, I have what is. I don't. It could go either way. I have him for two different ones. I would like to see Fred Savage in the remake as an adult.
Yeah.
So I think he could either be Prince Humperdinck and have a larger part, or he could be the grandpa, but not a grandpa, just the dad reading to his son.
Yeah. I have, for the grandfather, I had Mandy.
Yeah. That would be so perfect.
That would be so cute.
I would cry. I'm going to cry. Shit, you guys have to know I love Mandy Patinkin so much because he's such a wholesome human being. Okay.
Okay, Lindsay, who did you have for the grandfather?
I went with Tom Hanks.
Ooh,
okay.
That would be good too.
Yeah, that would be a good one. What? Oh, okay. So the three, Inigo, Fezzik, Cini.
So Inigo, I have Chris Pine. For Fezzik, I have Dave Bautista.
I did that too.
I did Dave Bautista too.
Because he's so obvious.
Yes, I did.
It's so obvious. He's so perfect. And he did play Fezzik in the World's Kitchen.
And you know what?
Remake.
I made this list before I watched that. And that was
Really?
so funny. I made this list before I watched that. I
That's
watched that
hilarious.
right before we recorded this.
So, well, and then my Vizzini is Patton Oswalt.
Mhm.
I think that's so perfect. So,
Yeah. Okay, Lindsay.
For my Inigo, I chose Diego Luna, who was also in the World Kitchen thing. He did play
mhm.
Inigo in there. I had a backup, but he's also in the World Kitchen thing.
That's not right.
Pedro Pascal, because
That
Yeah.
was mine. That was mine.
I considered Pedro Pascal, but I was like, that's just I felt like you guys were gonna pick that. So I was
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna pick anybody else. And
Because I love him.
I only picked Chris Pine as an ego because I have seen him in fencing type positions before in like different movies
Mhm.
and stuff. Not that he was particularly amazing, but he is a hot and B Star Trek and C I just love him. So why not?
for
All right, who
my
does that leave?
Fezzik though, I had two because
Oh,
I looked at heights and I saw that Dave Bautista is only like 6'4". So
only 6'4".
I went with Winston Duke, who's 6'5". He is in Black Panther,
Okay.
so I
Mhm.
feel like he would be like a really good giant because he's just
Yeah.
There
like
you go. There you go.
I have for Vicini, I have this one's gonna be weird. I
All
have
right.
Timothy Chalamet for that because if you see him on his SNL skits,
he's so funny.
he is hilarious, and I feel like he would be good. It would be like a young one, but still, I think it could be good. It could work.
Yeah,
Crystal,
it could definitely work.
who do
Yeah.
you have, Crystal?
That's all I have, I think.
Patton Oswald was my Vicini.
Oh,
I
that's
think
right.
that's all I've got.
Yeah, I
And
think that's all
I
I have.
didn't cast the grandson because legit like
Yeah,
any
any
kid.
kid. Yeah.
Any kid. So I think that wraps us up.
Say my Vizzini.
Oh, you didn't?
Oh,
Oh, what was it?
oh.
Sorry.
I went with John Mulaney,
Ooh, that would be
Okay.
good. Okay, I get it.
and I did pick a grandson. I picked the guy or the kid from Young Sheldon, Ian
Ooh, that would
Armitage or
be
something.
good.
Mhm.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah,
Okay, now are you sure you're done now?
I'm done. Wrap it up.
we're done.
Okay. Well, all right. I think that wraps us up, folks. I do want to give a big shout out to Liz in Arizona and her book club. Thank you so much for following along with us on Blue Sky. Don't forget you can follow us on all of our socials: Facebook, Insta, TikTok, YouTube. What else? I don't know. We got them all. If it's out there, we're probably there. Come check us out. Come join the conversation. We love talking to our fans and our viewers. We think you guys are pretty cool and we have some pretty awesome conversations. Don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, tell your friends. We love it. And rest well and dream of large women. Catch us on the next chapter of Based on a Book. Bye.